Joining me now is Nile Gardiner. He's the director of the Heritage Foundation's Margaret Thatcher Center for Freedom, the former foreign policy advisor under Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. Nile, where does this leave us with our allies on the world stage? The fact that not only did we turn our backs on them, but we have turned our backs on Americans and Afghan allies left behind in Afghanistan.
Well, good morning, Dagan. Thank you for having me on the show today. And without a doubt, we are witnessing the humiliation of a superpower. And this is a very dark moment for the United States on the world stage. And our allies across the world are questioning now America's credibility and America's standing in the world. And there has been widespread condemnation across the free world of the Biden administration's disastrous Afghan withdrawal. And I was just in London a few days ago, and the view in the UK from senior British politicians is that the Biden presidency itself is a monumental disaster. They've thrown US allies under the bus. They've abandoned the people of Afghanistan. The Biden administration has kowtowed to the Taliban. In fact, the Taliban are basically dictating the terms here. And this is a massive embarrassment for the United States. And many of our closest allies are now questioning American leadership on the international stage. And they're also looking beyond the Biden presidency, hoping that in a few years' time we'll actually have a president in place who is able to lead the free world instead of kneeling on the international stage. So I have to say that, the Biden administration has dragged the reputation of the United States through the mud. And this is an incredibly low moment, I think, for America on the world stage.
Well, certainly Joe Biden was sold by a, cooperative big media here in the United States as he was going to once again raise the standing of America on the world stage, and that he would lock arms with our foreign partners and the like. Did the leaders and officials in, say, Britain, did they really buy that, given the fact, to quote Bob Gates, the former Secretary of Defense, Joe Biden was on the wrong side of every foreign policy decision in his career? So are they getting something they didn't expect, or is it just worse than what their expectations were?
Well, I think it was mixed, actually. I think that many of the Brexiteer politicians in Britain were very suspicious of Biden anyway when he became president, because Biden has a strong anti-Brexit record. He's not known as a friend of the United Kingdom. So there were already serious doubts in place in London. There were, however, some politicians who were willing to give Biden the benefit of the doubt. But I think the Afghanistan debacle certainly has been a wake-up call, not only for Britain, but for the whole of the free world, because Joe Biden was, the man who promised to restore America's standing. But the reality is that the standing of the United States has fallen dramatically. And it's not only, of course, in the UK and in Europe that there is harsh condemnation of Biden. It's across the board. If you look at what the German government has been saying, actually, about Biden, it has been, extremely critical. And this whole idea that, that Biden is, standing with our allies, restoring the position of America on the international stage is complete, utter nonsense. And I do think that Biden has become just a huge embarrassment, actually, for the United States. And in fact, in many British senior political circles, Biden is referred to as Sleepy Joe. And I think there's a very dismissive view of Biden. He's also viewed as somebody who will not hesitate to throw America's allies under the bus, and that includes Great Britain, America's closest friend and partner. And Joe Biden wouldn't take the phone call of Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, for 36 hours after the fall of Kabul. This is a slap in the face for the British people. I think that Biden's been extremely disrespectful here. He's also clearly, I have to say, Biden and his whole team really clueless when it comes to foreign policy. And I cannot think of a president who has been worse on the world stage than Joe Biden. And that, of course, includes Barack Obama, who had an appalling record, actually, in terms of what he called leading from behind. So, the Biden presidency is an absolute disaster internationally. And I don't think that, Biden has really a close friend at all on the international stage at this time.
Steve Forbes, please get in.
Nile, what do you think impact this is going to have, the Afghan debacle, on the upcoming German elections and Germany's long-term relationship with the U.S., which is kind of fraying in recent years, critical that Germany remain firmly in the Western camp? What do you think is going to be the fallout of Afghanistan on our relations with Germany?
Well, that's a very good question, Steve, and it is significant that there has been very strong condemnation of Biden across the board in Germany, and I think there is a real concern in Germany about the future of the NATO alliance. And it's significant that when President Trump was the president, the Germans actually increased their defense spending. They made major defense spending increased pledges. But with Joe Biden, clearly he's undermining the NATO alliance, and I think that's going to be an issue actually in the German elections. Also, a lot of German politicians are now saying that Europe cannot in any way rely upon the United States. And so there are all sorts of consequences from Biden's actions here. But I think the bottom line is that across Europe, America's allies feel that they can no longer trust the U.S. president. And that is going to have major implications for the future of the transatlantic alliance. And I think that's a very dangerous development, because we are seeing the weakening of NATO. We're seeing the weakening of the transatlantic alliance under Joe Biden. That will only be restored, I believe, once Biden exits the presidency.
Well, this is what happens when you saw voters here in the United States chose personality over policy and form over substance, the form being someone who was hiding from view for much of the presidential campaign last year. But again, this is just before we go, Niall, to quote General Jack Keane from early in the show, the world has become a much more dangerous place because of the decision to get out of Afghanistan in the way we did, and leaving Americans and our allies behind. In the hands of a terrorist group, the Taliban. And so it leaves our allies, Britain, France, Germany, to name three, worried about the ascendance of not just terrorist organizations like al-Qaeda, which could attack embassies in capitals around the globe, but also Russia and China and the like, those who will do anything to gain power by any means necessary on the world stage.
Absolutely, Dagan. And I think that, this is an abdication of U.S. leadership on the international stage. Our enemies are emboldened. My former boss, Margaret Thatcher, would have been absolutely horrified and appalled by what has happened here. And she would have strongly condemned the actions of the Biden administration. And as you say, I think the world is now a far more dangerous place thanks to the spectacular failures of Biden's presidency here. And across the board, from Beijing to Moscow to Tehran, the enemies of the free world, the enemies of the United States, are celebrating. So these are very, very dangerous times. And we need to see the restoration of American leadership. But that's not going to happen with this absolutely clueless, weak-kneed Biden presidency. And our allies understand that, and they're going to be looking beyond Biden now, I think.
Nile Gardiner, thank you so much. Great to see you this morning. We'll see you again very soon.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for watching the Heritage Foundation's YouTube channel. With more than 500,000 members, we are the nation's largest conservative research and education institution. We believe the principles and ideas of the American founding are worth conserving and renewing. Please help us further our mission by subscribing to this channel and sharing our videos with your family and friends.